in Southern California, just west of Thousand Oaks, is the Mullen Automotive Museum, which features what some call the most beautiful car ever created.
This car that I'm standing by is the 1936 Bugatti Type 57 SC Atlantic. And it's one of the two remaining original cars in the world. This one we're lucky enough to have in this collection, and the one that Ralph Lauren has in his collection on the East Coast. But this car is the second of the four original Atlantiques that were made, and it followed the prototype originally created called the Aerodynamic. People always ask about the ridges on this car and the rivets holding it together, and where did that happen? And that's because the original Aerodynamic, which is long disappeared, was made out of electron composition metal, which was about 80% magnesium, 20% aluminum. Magnesium is a fantastic metal, and they use it in airplane engines because it's light and very strong. But the problem is that if you weld it, it burns, and so in the process of welding your car together, it'll burn up. So ultimately, they didn't use electron, they used aluminum. So this was Jean Bugatti's most famous design of all time, and he got his father to agree to run the axle through the chassis to lower the car. It's a supercharged car, so it has all the essence of speed, aerodynamics, beauty, and this metallic blue paint job was the original color on the car that was discovered when Dr. Peter Williamson originally owned this car, and when he restored it just in time to win Best of Show at Pebble Beach, actually. They found this original color down buried underneath behind the trunk. So that was a thrill to see that happen. So when Dr. Peter Williamson, who owned this car for 15, 18 years, ultimately passed away, his family decided to sell his collection of cars at auction. But they held back this car, said, no, this car is not going to auction. That this car is going to stay with the family unless we find exactly the right person that would honor it and display it for the public. So they didn't want a Russian oligarch buying it, or a Middle Eastern sheikh that perhaps this car would be locked away forever. So I was lucky enough to have a partner of mine, a friend, Rob Walton, and so we agreed that we would together attempt to see if we were worthy of the family allowing us to buy this car from. So I flew back and met with the children and Mrs. Williamson, and after a lot of discussion and a weekend with them, they concluded that if it was going to be shown in a museum setting like this and featured for what it is and what it meant to the car world, that we were the right candidate. So Rob and I very luckily were able to add it to the collection. Jean Bugatti, who designed this car in 1936 and then tragically died a couple of years later in an auto accident. But this remains kind of his legacy of the Bugatti world. And it's generally known as the Mona Lisa of the car world, as the most desirable, most precious, most gorgeous thing that's ever been created.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode. Be sure to watch our next restoration segment this Thursday, here on Double Clutch.